little bit past 7 o'clock, and I'll call our city council meeting to order. Karen, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Husnick,
Here.
Councilmember Munson,
Here.
Councilmember Byström,
Here.
Councilmember Valento, here, and Mayor Bain.
Here. I'd like to invite everyone to rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Council, we have an agenda before you this evening. I will entertain a motion to approve or any changes.
Mayor Bain, I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, and agenda is approved. Our next item this evening is open forum. Open forum is residents' opportunity to speak to council on any topic of your choosing. I said residents, I actually mean interested party. We invite all. Is there anybody for open forum this evening? We do ask that you limit comments to 3 minutes. I see a hand up. Do you want to add? We'll just wait till the end. Oh, our first up is Geneva, is it Kubal? Yes. And if you could come to the podium.
Good evening. My name is Geneva Kubal. The reason I'm here tonight is I am appealing a decision by the Public Works Department. We requested a street light and it was denied. And so I was looking over the street light policy and it said streetlights were designed not to provide things for private residence security. That's not why we put in our request. It was to, basically it's for what we feel is safety reasons. And that is one of the reasons why you can put lights in. Our pedestrian hazard is lack of a sidewalk and about half the distance of a street, the other nearby streets just by our location. In addition to this, there is a street light that is up. It's been out for quite some time. It has been put in to be fixed. It's been 14 days, which I'm not complaining about that. But even if that were to be fixed, there's 2 really large trees that prevent light from entering into this narrow area. I understand that there's a lot of numbers involved in these things, and numbers do not tell the full story. Distances between poles are one thing, but reality might be another, and I am unsure and unclear if the person went out in the evening when the hazards are really identified. So I applaud his effort for responding to me immediately, but I don't think that our concerns were really addressed. I also was walking around the neighborhood, which I do a lot, and I've seen other areas with similar distances, if even not closer than the one I am requesting, and I was given the criteria for that, which seems a little bit subjective, which is fine. I understand that things can be a little bit subjective, but when I look at those locations where the lights are closer, there is a sidewalk, there is nothing distracting any of the streets and the lights in this area, and it's a wider road. So again, I don't think that, even though they're closer, I still think it would be nice to have a light in our direction. Even if we get the light, and that would really be fantastic. And when I spoke to the residents, I spoke to everybody who lived by this light. Every resident signed it easily. Nobody had a concern, and they said it would be a great idea. So we are hoping that the council will at least consider this request or come up with some other alternate plan that can come up with some lighting for the residents in this very dark, dead-end area where the intersection that we have to walk into is not well lit. So thank you for your time. That is my concern.
Thank you for being here. And yeah, right, okay. Eugene Hurstel.
Thank you, City Council. Eugene Hurstel, 10234 204th Street North, Forest Lake. And I just wanted to, I see that the budget is on the agenda today and I would like to say a couple things that I saw a pretty good size increase. It's kind of hard, we're all, I know, dealing with inflation. I hope you don't use that as an excuse, but as we see our taxes going up and having to pay more and more each year, especially retired people that are on fixed incomes and that. I'm speaking for them and myself. I know it's, people will ask me, well, where can you cut? And there are places where you can cut. If you go in and look at the audit and look at some of these things, there are places, maybe some will need an increase, but other places can be reduced. I do see that, and I did have a talk with Al here, previous here, about you are hiring an inspector, and with all the, I guess, all the building and everything going on, that would probably be paid for, you know, through building permits and stuff, okay? I don't know what the cost is or what the total cost that would be. But if you look at maybe every year, we look at capital improvements, or we look at certain, well, let's see, we need this equipment, or let's, and it's just each year in a row, we buy this, then the next year we buy this. Maybe we should stop and say, okay, maybe this year we don't, and see if you could come back. And I know maybe you've talked to heads of your departments or what, but discuss and see. There is a way, there is a way. Also, I would just like to say, Mr. Adams on the Public Works, since he's been here, I used to live in the Forest Lake Township, and I know it's been 20 years, but now since he's been here, things happen with the roads and the different things. Or if we need something done, we can call him. He does it one at a time. He answers our phone calls. He always gets back to us and stuff. So I know that there's people in the township that do appreciate what he's done. And I would still say, let's keep the roads going and, you know, that type of road, sewer, public safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Eugene. Is there anybody else for open forum this evening? Anybody online for open forum?
There's not.
All right. With that, we'll close open forum tonight and move on to our consent agenda. Council, before you is consent agenda items 6A through 6L. Happy to entertain a motion or any changes.
Mayor Bain, I'd like to pull 6E. Need to recuse myself.
And is that a motion to,
Yes, I will. I'd like to pull item 6E, and I will make a motion to approve items 6A through D and F through L.
I'll second. Very good. We have a motion from Councilmember Byström and a second from Councilmember Munson. All of those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? And consent agenda items approved. Moving on to the regular agenda is consent agenda item 6E.
Just wanted to recuse myself. It's the organization that I work for, and I was pretty heavily involved in this project, so.
Understood and respected. I would motion that we approve agenda items 6E, the 19850 Fenway Avenue North conditional use permit, Fifth Amendment. Is there a second? Second from Councilmember Husnick. All those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? And one abstention. Motion approved. Moving on to our regular agenda, first item is the American Legion 4th of July events date for 2022. Karen, I believe you're kicking this off for us.
I had someone from the American Legion, Pat, contact me, and they wanted to come forward and talk about the dates for next year, get those approved by council, if you agree. And then I think he had some other talking points that he wanted to talk through with council. So welcome, Pat.
Perfect, welcome.
Thank you. Short talking points. Hi, I'm Pat Silovich. I'm currently serving as the first vice commander. I was getting there.
I know you were.
First vice commander at the Legion, American Legion Post 225 here in Forest Lake. Vicki Petrie is with tonight, finance officer on the board for 8-10 years.
Past commander.
Past commander times 2, and currently serving on the board as previous commander. Ashley, who you may remember from a couple of 3 years ago, is here with me, and she couldn't be here tonight because of family circumstances. So it was nice 3 years ago when she was here. At that meeting, basically, we talked about the expense of pyrotechnics and Fourth of July fireworks. It basically comes down to $1,000 a minute. And I know we're on the agenda to confirm this coming year's date, but I didn't want to not take the opportunity to first say thank you for contributions of the past and hopefully of the future. And also to remind you that like many other businesses, because of COVID and also because of a major kitchen fire we had that shut our kitchen down for 5 months, which we had just got all done, refurbished, relicensed, permitted, and we're up and running, and COVID hit. So you can imagine that our fundraising abilities have really been shot down, the silent auctions, the spaghetti dinners, and the like. And it's going to be that way for the next year or two while we're still seeking to recover. So thank you for contributions of the past. We want to continue to be able to provide a 25 to 30 minute outstanding 4th of July fireworks, as well as the parade and the flyover and all the other events that go with it. As most of you know, I hope know, the driver is the Legion. So thank you for past support, and looking forward to partnering together in the future. Dates wise, Nikki?
Well, we wanted to get on the agenda, at least to get our 4th of July dates out there for the community. So we are looking at June 30th, which is Thursday, through July 4th, which is a Monday. And then on Monday is where we would have our parade in the morning and the fireworks at night, which is traditionally what we do. It did work out really nice last year because we did the parade on Saturday, because we don't do it on Sunday, just due to church and stuff like that. But then we did the fireworks on Sunday, which worked out well. But that won't happen again for another 5 years. But so we wanted to ask for the dates to be June 30th. It'll be like in the evening, the carnival opens, and then go through July 4th. And then I just wanted to thank you also for the fireworks and also for the porta potties. That was a great help, because I know that the city ended up being, for the porta potties that went out along the parade route, down by the beach, and it's very well appreciated. So, thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Don't go away yet. I just want to confirm that in tonight's budget, that we have the fireworks budgeted, as well as kind of same level of services that we've provided in past years. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Porta potties, all of that good stuff. Police and fire service, I know, does a fair amount, that and Public Works as well, do a fair amount. Perfect. And then official action tonight, obviously we've got the preliminary levy on the agenda later in this evening. Is there official action that's needed for the dates? Or are you just looking for feedback from us on?
Feedback.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess I would ask the chiefs on feedback around the dates as proposed, any concerns? Is this and I guess I would also ask as part of that, is this part of the standard when the 4th of July is on a Monday? Is this typically what we've done, is a Thursday to Monday
That is
celebration?
correct.
Okay. Any?
Yeah, no issues from Chief Newman and I, and Thursday, I believe, would be the setup. Is that correct?
That would be when we start, so they would probably set up Tuesday, Wednesday.
Okay, all right, yep. And
No parking signs and all of that.
yeah, like Pat and Vicky said, it's, from our recollection, that's how it's always been for a Monday, July 4th.
Perfect. And do we need an official action to memorialize the dates?
I was going to say, historically, it looks like you have voted on that in the past to approve the dates.
Okay. Thank you, just wanted that clarification. So just some comments. So
Okay.
thank you for all you do for this event. It is our headline event of the year, and council is very much aware that this is not a city event. It's a 4th of July, or it's a American Legion sponsored event, but I think the general public doesn't necessarily know that. So any opportunity I get, I always like to give you credit for all of the hard work, so thank you.
Thank you.
Continue to keep us in mind, as we know fundraising has been challenging, and so if you need some pies in the face or whatever, we've done it in the past and we'd probably do it again.
All right.
So keep us in mind, and thank you for all you do. Counselor,
you.
any other?
No, just say that it was really well run last time. I don't think there were any issues at all, so really worked out well. Yeah, I know these
Fireworks
folks
in
are-
particular
Yeah.
were
These folks really work hard,
fabulous.
so.
Yeah, the fireworks, there was a lot, and they were the talk of the town.
Well, it is a female-run fireworks, just so you know. Ashley Venberg sets up all the fireworks. She's the one that's certified. She's the one that plugs them all in. She runs it.
I think when Ashley and I were here 3 years ago, or whenever it was, she was under training. That training took about 5 years. And like Vicky said, now she's fully credentialed and all that. So she's the main button pusher.
Well, tell her more of the same. It was just really well done.
Wonderful.
So with that, I
Thank you.
would motion that we approve the dates as proposed by the American Legion for the 4th of July celebration. Is there a
second.
motion and a second from Councilmember Munson? Any further discussion or questions from council? With that, all of those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, oppose, and motion carries. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item this evening is the Stacy Lent Burn Tower Rental Agreement and Release Form. Chief Newman.
Mayor and members of council, this is for a training that we do up in Stacy Lint. And we have it scheduled for 2 days, October 5th and October 9th. And the reason why we schedule it for 2 days is we can't take the entire department out of the area. So we break it up and have half the department go on one day and the other half go on the other day. Now, we've actually trained up there for 4 or 5 years. This is the first year that they've actually had an agreement for us to sign. In the agreement, our damage deposit is $0. The cost isn't listed, but it's $600 a training night. So for both training nights, it's $1,200, which is substantially less expensive as it would be if we were able to do a burn in a house ourselves. So, and then it's been reviewed by the city attorney. So if you have any questions for me, I'm here to answer them.
Thank you, Chief. Council, any questions for Chief this evening?
Well, I guess, Peter, did you have any questions or comments about it?
Your Honor, Councilmember Husnick, no concerns with the agreement.
Well, then I make a motion that we go ahead with the agreement and the training session.
I'll second.
Motion from Councilmember Husnick and a second from Councilmember Valento. Any further discussion? All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, oppose, and motion carries. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
And don't go far. Next item, Building Inspector 1, position hiring recommendation. This also is Chief
Okay,
Newman.
so up for consideration is filling the building inspector 1 position. That position has been empty for almost 2 years. When COVID hit, we kind of just stopped. We didn't know where the building was gonna, construction was gonna end up with COVID. And so we used MinSpect to do a lot of our contract inspection when we fell behind peaks and valleys. And we're getting to the point where building's starting to pick up. Looking to the future, it looks like we've got some residential and commercial and apartments coming into the area. And so we want to back off using MinSpec and actually fill that position, which has been vacant for 2 years. So we did interviews, and on 9/13, we made a conditional offer to Robert Prue, who has actually worked at MinSpec and been the inspector out in Forest Lake for the last couple of years. He works great with the contractors. I get a lot of positive feedback from the contractors on the inspection job that he does. So we're recommending to hire Robert Prue, starting at a grade 7, step 3 at $33.38 per hour.
Thank you, Chief. Council, questions for Chief? You answered the one question I had. I know that we've had conversation around customer service and needing to have the right person in this position. So I just wanted to, my question was to make sure that you were comfortable, that we were gaining that expertise, and sounds like he's actually served in Forest Lake before and you have some real feedback. So
Yeah, I mean, it's a known
That's-
commodity with him, so I'm excited if approved to bring him on.
fabulous.
I had this conversation with Chief Newman earlier, just kind of a man-to-man thing, and seemed like it's going to actually fit the bill that we need here in Forest Lake. So if you need a motion, I'll certainly make that motion that
I
we,
think we're ready for a motion.
okay, that we go ahead and with the hiring of Robert Prue for the building inspection position, building inspector 1 position, as recommended by Al Newman.
I'll second.
A motion by Councilmember Husnick and a second from Councilmember Byström. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? And motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Next up this evening is a resolution to end the citywide watering ban that was enacted in July. And Dave, you're going to walk us through this.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As Mayor Band has said, in July, end of July, we put on a watering ban, July 27th. As the DNR said, we were in severe drought stage and we were to cut back our usage to January usage, which was about 1.5 million that we needed to cut off for our daily usage. So the only way we saw fit was to declare a watering ban. So that was enacted. Staff has been monitoring the DNR drought map. It comes out every Thursday. Early September, the city was removed out of the severe drought. In the memo, that is the September 14th map, and then on the dais, I think, or Karen had given you the update of September 21st, which is pulled back even farther. A lot of the red is gone as well. So, and the exceptional, the maroon around Red Lake. So I believe the city, the state is, as a whole, moving in the right direction. I see us moving more into the yellow with the more moisture and the cooler weather. So I think staff feels safe with what we've seen and the trend. As soon as we got out of the severe drought, I didn't want to remove it right away. I wanted to see it trending for 2, 3, 4 weeks in that right direction. So I think the way it's trending right now, we don't have a risk of taking it off and then putting it back on again. That's what I didn't want to have happen. So I think where we're at right now, hopefully we get a good winter with some snow. With Public Works, I really don't want a lot of snow, but you know, kind of a catch-22
You
here.
guys gonna
But
say what side of
yeah.
the roof?
Come to the two hats you wear.
Put it
Yep.
on, yeah.
so just like I said in the memo, just in a quick calculation of what our average is in these last 60-some days, we probably conserved about 75 to 100 million gallons of water out of our aquifers. So that's a pretty big deal that we save that much water. So I'd just like to thank the residents and everybody for complying with the ban, and it's greatly appreciated. So when you put these on, sometimes you don't know how it's going to go, but it went very well. I think we wrote out a couple hundred citations at the most, and most of them were just first-time warnings and nothing. A lot of it were people just run away. So yeah, with that, if you have any other questions, but I'm just recommending passing the resolution to end the watering ban.
Does that take us back to the odd even watering then? Is that still in effect? I mean, that's pretty much the way it is, right?
Yep, so city ordinance is odd even, and I think, in discussing even with council and staff, I think that's something that we need to work on a little bit better going into next spring. I think this year it's kind of going to be rough. You see a lot of people blowing out the irrigation already that aren't even going to be thinking about it, but I think our message boards did really well this year. I think we're going to put them out in the spring as people are firing up, just to let everybody know, just a reminder, it's always odd even watering, and help us not get into a watering ban, just follow the ordinance. So I think it's, I know it and a lot of other people know it, but some residents, they have somebody install their, their irrigation, they put it on everyday watering and they don't know. I think that'll be a big thing, a push in the spring, just to get that out and remind people or just let people know that is what our ordinance is all the time, is odd even.
I'd like to suggest I don't know, if we distribute a flyer or put up a sign or something at the compost when it opens. You get a lot of folks doing spring cleanup, dropping things off. It might be a great place to draw some awareness to the odd even.
Yeah, we can grab a bunch of people, even our utility billing, now that it's back in house.
Yeah.
We can add flyers a lot easier, even a full
Awesome.
page ad in the utility bill, which comes out beginning of April after our
Great.
first quarter, just to catch everybody's eye. So I think a lot of people, when they saw their bills after they were watering every day, I think maybe have banned themselves, you know, after, you know, so
The budget
I think it's
benefit.
helpful to see what happens when you water every day just to
Yeah.
keep your grass green, so it may be, you know, some of that as well, but definitely in the spring, we will circle back. I think the compost is a great idea too. We get a lot of people through there.
Well, Mayor Bain, I move adoption of Resolution 09-27-21-03, ending of the citywide watering ban that was enacted on July 26th, 2021.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Byström and a second from Councilmember Valento. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, I'll just echo Dave's appreciation to businesses and residents on helping us by being in compliance and saving all of that water. Much appreciated. All of those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, and motion carries. Our next item this evening is consideration of adoption of the 2022 preliminary property tax levy. And Sandy, I believe you're walking us through this.
Yes. By September 30th of every year, we are required to bring to the council a resolution to approve the preliminary levy for the year, which is for 2022, as well as the date for the final levy certification, which we have set for December 13th at 6 o'clock. And the board or the council had before them the budgets, but we did send a revision to you tonight for the EDA budgets. So looking at the certification of the preliminary levy for 2022, the total amount is $12,530,771, which is a 9.46% increase. And you have the breakdown before you in the resolution as well.
Sandy? Patrick, anything further?
No, I'll wait until the budget presentation, budget discussion, have a presentation. I don't know if you want to do that before you pass the levy or you'd want to wait to do that then. It's really just answering some of the questions that came up on Monday. Also that, just to remind everybody, this is a preliminary levy. That levy may change. It cannot go up, but it possibly, and we'll work hard to see how, if we can get it down a little bit, at least somewhat, so.
My preference would be to hear the full context of conversation and then bring back for vote after that conversation, but happy to hear feedback. I see some nodding heads. So Patrick, why don't you go ahead and we can.
It's have to switch spots here.
In the meantime, I kind of want to, I want the taxpayers to know that this is the ultimate wish list. And so if there can be something that we can do there, we'll
Agree, certainly.
work on it.
Certainly the emphasis on preliminary tonight.
Yeah, preliminary, you bet.
But I also think that it's important for us to identify and communicate need, you know?
oh,
and
yeah,
I think that's
yeah.
what this does.
I agree.
It's, and I understand what you're saying, Councilmember Husnick. I think it's less of a wish list and more of a need list. Yeah. So it may be semantics, but I think they're important. They're important words.
Okay, so I wasn't here on Monday, but there seemed to be a few questions I thought we should go over before we go to the levy. This is a pretty straightforward presentation. It just is more informational, and I'm trying to give you some history and background on what we've kind of looked at for the last few years. So it meanders a bit, but I think it'll answer some of the questions we may be looking for, so. let's
Just
get-
to interrupt you and to tee up context, this is maybe the third or fourth discussion council has had on this topic. And
Correct.
certainly if it feels like you're coming in midway, you are. And the goal tonight is to reach council consensus. And then certainly there's opportunity for future discussion before we adopt final in December. So
Correct.
we are very much picking up a conversation that has been in play for a number of meetings.
And October will be, a workshop will be a pretty large discussion. We'll get into some of the things that we'll mention now in a few minutes here, so. I want to talk about growth somewhat. The question came up is, we're growing, how's the market go? What's the levy versus the market rate? Just for reference, this is the recent census report from the Metropolitan Council. And the interesting item here is the number of housing units that have been added since the last census. Now, I know there's been some issues with the census and maybe it's not as accurate, but the next slide will show you it's pretty darn accurate. So we have added over 1,060 housing units. That's a lot to add and we haven't increased staff and police and things like that. We'll get to that in a minute. So our population has gone up. We're now at 20,611. So that indicates that we're a growing community and it's going to continue. There's a lot of opportunities and vacant land and housing demand that has been unmet in the metropolitan area that's only going to continue to increase as we go along. Just to look at our own internal data regarding residential building activity, it really mimics the number of households that was reported by the census. We see that since 2014, we've added 344 single-family homes. We've added 58 townhouse units, and the amazing one is 656 apartment units. Again, 1,058, so really close to that 1,060 number that you saw from the Metropolitan Council. Again, showing some kind of the growth that we're anticipating and anticipate to continue. Just looking at some of the growth indicators that we look at, and this information is always in the back of your audit book. That's the statistical, so that's where this is gained from. And if you look at this is a real good indication of what we're seeing. So in 2011, our police calls were 12,700. Now they're 16,000. And that's probably even low because 2020 was a COVID year. So we probably maybe not have as many. Again, the fire calls went from 444 to 495. Some years it's even been higher. I didn't give the whole gamut of those reporting. We resurfaced 10 miles of street in 2011 and 4.7 miles in 2020. Here's another large indicator. The water connections in 2011 were 3858, and now we have 4243. Water main breaks, as you see, have increased, and that shows of an infrastructure that needs a lot of attention, and we've been trying to get there. I think we're well into handling some of those issues of both the water and the sewer fund as we've gone through before. The average water consumption in 2011 was 941,000 gallons versus 1.233 million gallons. Again, another indicator. Sewer connections pretty much mimic the increase in the water, going from 5,565 to 6,014. We've reorganized parks and the seasonal workers and things. We used to hire 23, now we hire 16 on a summer basis. We've gone from 130 miles to 139 miles of roads. We've gone from 69 miles of water mains to 75 miles of water mains. We've gone from 701 fire hydrants to 798 fire hydrants. We've gone from 91 miles of sanitary sewer to 107 miles of sanitary sewer. We've stayed stable with parks and park acreage in those years, which also should tell us that we should be paying more attention to park acreage because we're growing.
Right. I know there's a lot of shocking numbers on here, but that's the one that really stands out. We have not added a single park, all those housing units, and we've not added a single park.
And that's something we really have to work at and pay attention to because, again, going back to the strategic plan, one of the issues was people like parks and trails and lakes.
Yes.
We're not getting there yet. So as each new development comes, we are trying to get them to add parkland and being somewhat successful. What happened in the past was they took the money instead of the parkland. Well, money is easier to get back than land. Once land goes, it's gone. You can't put a park where a housing development is. So we have to be cognizant that we have to pay attention to acquiring more parkland to meet those long-term needs of the citizens. One of the issues came up is our levy, and always we paid a lot of attention to the increase in the levy from year to year, which is really kind of misleading. It really doesn't tell you where we're going. It's just a number that says how much we're raising, the amount of money that we need to operate. So we tried to come up with a way to show you the levy increases versus the market taxable increases in the land, the value of the land. So if you look at the history since 2014, you see pretty kind of standard 3.675, mostly 5% increases. That's pretty much what our average is looking like. But if you look at the value of our marketable taxable land, it tells a different story. It tells that we've gone up 7.9%, 6%, 3.9%, 9.7, 8.7, 4.6, and 4.3. And that varies depending on what the assessment is, what the market value, obviously. If you have a hot housing market, that value is going to go up because demand's there. So instead, what I wanted to show is that if we tied, and I don't recommend this, quite honest with you, if we tied the increase in our levy on an annual basis to what the market value goes, you can see what it does here. And I've used the same percentages. But what really, if we did it that way, we'd be $1.1 million short of what we've actually levied for taxes. So you can see the market has been better. If we had followed that kind of a formula, we would be $1 million ahead, or have more $1 million to do our operations, and possibly give that to roads or give that to whoever or whatever, because as you all know, the needs in the city are great as far as infrastructure, parks, and all associated. So that kind of just tries to give you an indication of what the market's doing versus how we levy. The other thing is that the question was asked, we talked a little bit about the hiring of a community development director and what the costs of services are to different types of land use. It has been always the case since I've known, and most records are, is that commercial and industrial land requires less public service than houses do. And even if you want to break that down in residential, when you have apartment buildings, they usually take more services than a single family home, just because of the mass of people all in one place. So you see here that the cost for every dollar of property taxes received, services for commercial and industrial land is 29 cents, whereas the cost of service to residential units is $1.16. So it's in our best interest and long-run interest is to try to attract and retain more commercial industrial land. I mean, that's the goal here. Again, we have a comprehensive plan that addresses some of those uses, but we have to probably be a little bit more progressive and aggressive, basically, in trying to get those type of developments in the city. There was a number of requests for positions this year, and recently the discussion about hiring a community development director. The hiring of a community development or EDA specialist came out of the EDA committee a few weeks back, and they made a valid point that we aren't aggressively out there trying to recruit business. We're a reactive community instead of a proactive community. And if we want to try to take advantage of that earlier slide where we're only spending 12 cents per dollar as opposed to $1.16, we need to get out there and try to attract and recruit businesses. So what we requested in the budget currently, there's a police sergeant, which as a result, and we did a study years back from the Center for Public Safety Management that tells us that we need a police sergeant. We've included it this year. We've talked about it for since I've been here and probably before. We put in a police patrol officer that will get us back to levels that we had in 2015. And again, if you look at both the police sergeant and the police officer and our police staff since 2015, not going up, and we have 1,000 more residential units. And I think that tells you that we're probably falling a little bit short on some of that. Also, we've recommended and it's not in the budget, but I'll say this a few times tonight, is that we have to go back and do some of the math, and we'll bring that to the October meeting. But I fully and strongly support the creation and hiring of a community development director who also is in charge of the EDA. Again, why now? Well, we need to be proactive. We need to be proactive instead of reactive, like I said earlier. It will help us increase development activity and potential development in the near future. I mentioned here Highway 97, Highway 8 that was mentioned at the meeting. Those are going to be corridors that are going to be redone and refurbished. And when that happens, that brings more traffic and more people and usually more development. So we have to be ready to take advantage of those opportunities. We now have a vacancy in the planning department. Since we have that, we should take advantage of that and take a look at how we can restructure and refresh the delivery of community services, community development services. And I think they're sorely needed to refurbish that department and have a new look. Being a community development director, part of EDA, his or her duties will focus a lot on emphasis on economic development as well as the building and planning and zoning side. And it'll just really give us a more responsive and organized approach to residential, commercial, and industrial development. And I have to compliment Dan and Ryan and Dave, listening to the meeting last week. They did a great job in describing some of the things that were going on here. And the point here is that we need to be clear to developers what our expectations are, what the rules are, what they need to do to complete. One of the struggles that we have here or have had here is that we tell the developers one thing, and oh, by the way, 3-4 weeks, a month later, or 3 months later, we tell them, oh, we forgot to tell you this, or no, that's not what I meant. And we have to correct that. And we'll be honest, we're not throwing stones at anybody. It's just the way that the operation has worked. And part of that, and part of the reason for a community development director, I believe that the prior incumbent in the position had too much on his plate. What they tried to do when they created that position is they eliminated a community development director, they eliminated a planner, and they eliminated a planning assistant and folded that all into one. And that really overwhelmed that position, whether he was good or bad or indifferent, that position was overwhelmed. And it was never destined for success, no matter who we put on there, so. Again, the goals, strategic focus, communicate to the development community a clear vision, standardized development review. Big one is to increase outreach and recruitment of business. I think if we're getting out there and attending those meetings and those seminars and those things that are out in the community or out in the greater metro, I think we have a better chance to get people and businesses here. We need to work better with the community partners. Again, some of these things are repeating, but we need to retain and support local business as well. And finally, I think this position can also have insight and seek additional funding sources to help us pay for some of this development or grants or studies or whatever the case may be that we need. How do we pay for it? Again, we will come back with a revised general fund EDA budget to address what we think and how we're going to pay for it in October. But it's going to be a split position between the general fund and economic development fund. You did have a revised economic development fund on your desk tonight that shows that. And we believe that a lot of we can get some of the savings from the outsourcing activities that we do now. We depend highly on our engineering firm, and they do a great job. I can't quantify exactly what kind of savings that'll be, but I think that we can reorganize and redirect some of those charges back into the city system. Particularly now we have a new building inspector. We can do some more plan review internally, not send that out to the engineering firm, and look at those opportunities to reduce the costs or the payments to those firms. The incumbent was a planner / zoning administrator. We also recommend filling that vacant position. That person will, be responsive to daily requests and work, while the community development director will be more high level and out there in the street and doing some things. And again, like I said, not trying to manage 2 jobs. He or she will only manage 1. We also are recommending a community development coordinator. What I don't want is the community development director or the planner to get bogged down in daily type of minutes and typing agendas and things like that. But this person, what we're also recommending, would coordinate code enforcement, assign code enforcement complaints to either an inspector or to the zoning administrator if that's the case. And again, do help with the minutes and also may be able to help in other areas of, with the building department and so forth. So we're looking at those as well. Recently, we had the communications recreation coordinator become vacant on a resignation. Again, we need to take the opportunity to look at that position and restructure or understand it better. My thought is that with hiring a community development director and a community development team, it'll take the EDA responsibilities away from the assistant administrator and house that with the community development director. That will free up the assistant administrator to focus on communications. Now, we've had that discussion already. We think that's a good model. Dan has experience in some of that, so I think we can do a good job with that. And also kind of shift some of the other duties to the recreation people or to the assistant city clerk to do some of the other web updates and things like that. So we'll see how that works. If it doesn't work well, obviously we'll have to come back and try again. But I think with this structure, the assistant administrator knows the city better than any communications coordinator that walk in the door. The first goal will be to create a communications plan and guidelines and things so that we can set it up for success. And being that Dan is here just like everybody else on a daily basis and every meeting, for the most part, we won't miss that much, where I think we kind of missed a little bit with the prior position. So again, we'll update the budget in October. That's the goal here. So I wanted to go over a little bit of the history that most of you may know, but some out in the community may not, or may, regarding how our budget, how our personnel count went. I've got a couple of charts here, again, from the 2020 audit that shows our staffing levels over the years since 2011. And I won't read them all, but you can see things like our administration went from 2 to 3, our finance went from 4 to a low of 2 at one point. Community development, we had 3 people in the prior years, and that went to 1. Facilities maintenance stayed the same. I've already talked about the police officers going from 25 to 26 and then back down to 25. Police civilians got as low as 2. We have 1 fire chief. We had a fire inspection person and process, but that was eliminated, so we don't do much of that as we should. And building inspectors, we were at 4, and we went down to as low as 2 at one year, and we're at 3 after 2020. So same thing with public works. You see that at one time highway and streets were 6, it went down to 5. Just recently we recaptured some of that. Maintenance in public works is about the same. We've stayed the same with surface water and the parks program. And the park maintenance, we've recently added a couple of that, was when we talked about the maintenance of Fenway and the city grounds and things like that. Water has stayed stable at 2, sewer has stayed stable at 2, and finance, which is the clerk for water and utilities, has stayed at 1. So if you look at this, we were running a high of 58 and 59 employees until approximately 2014, when it started to decrease to a low of 53. And the point here is that we've cut staff, we lowered staff while we're still growing and getting bigger, and demands are getting greater. That's a story. That's an issue that we should be looking at and should know. Yes, I'm one that would like efficiency in government and staffing wise, but you can't, when you're a growing community like we are, you have to really be careful when you have positions not to undercut yourself, but not then to overfill either. So I think some of the proposals that we have for the 2022 budget are the right ones. I think if we adopt those staffing levels as recommended, that will keep us at a good place for a while. I don't think we'll have to increase much in administrative staff any longer. We'll have to look at police staff as that grows, possibly fire staff, just because of, get hit by a bus theory. If somebody isn't here, who's going to run the fire department? So we need a succession plan there that I think we have to address, but the proposed positions will put us in a real good place that we should be comfortable with. And as we continue to grow, we'll reevaluate police officers, fire, and maintenance in parks and streets and sewers. We won't automatically add those, but as we grow and demands increase, we will continue to evaluate those. Just going back from that chart, I just wanted to show you that in 2023, there was a proposed reorganization that most of it got implemented. And I just wanted to show you what they did. And I'll go through this quick, but we eliminated the building official, building inspector, building assistant, building maintenance supervisor, and a custodian. Part of this was to add firefighter slash building officials, firefighter, building inspector, fire techs. This was to have some daytime response in the fire department. This was really a pretty good idea, so that we still have a building inspector and a fire technician that will go out on fire calls and respond to those. The firefighter custodian hasn't taken place because they were waiting for the incumbents of those positions to retire, and that hasn't happened yet. So there was no savings for that, but I think that was more of an operational change than it was just a reduction and, trying to save money change. Phase 2 of that reorganization saw the community development director, the city planner, the city planning, the community development assistant, and the park director all be eliminated. The thought was to add a an economic development coordinator, which never happened. They combined the planning and then zoning administrator into one, so that person took on those 3 positions all for his own. They downgraded the park director and hired a trails and parks coordinator. That was just really kind of just a declass of that. And there was a suggestion of a CSO paid internship program for the police department, which also never happened. Phase 3, they eliminated the public works director, a street lead worker, and a utility worker. Instead, they hired a public works superintendent. They put that at a lower level. That was a method they could do that. Put in a street maintenance worker and a water and sewer maintenance worker. They saved $57,000 for that reorganization. Phase 4 eliminated a police typist, a police evidence technician, and a senior police administrative secretary, and in its place put 3 support people. Estimated savings of that about $5,900. So if you look at all that reorganization that was proposed in 2013, it saved the city a total of $119,000 basically. And not every year that you saved $119,000, but even if you multiplied that by 5 years, it's still a very small amount of savings for that kind of a reorganization, while at the same time hampering your service levels and your organization's response to citizens and developers and whoever else. So that's just the impact of that. Other staffing changes that happened as well. Again, they eliminated the fire inspection position, which I mentioned before. They eliminated the finance director's position and outsourced that, which I'll be honest, I could never understand why you would do that. That's a major portion of what you do. So we have, as you know, put that back in the budget, have the finance department back in the budget. And I already talked about eliminating the police position, and that we had a count of 58 and went down to a count of 53. Just to talk a little bit about the financial plan and bonding, we continue to work on a long-term financial plan. As you know the challenges as well as I do. There's the needs we have are outpacing our resources. We have faced for a while the kick the can syndrome, where we haven't addressed some of the needs that we need. We've presented the council with a number of scenarios, a 2 million bonding, so often a 4 million, 8 million. We just haven't found the right fit and how that fits together. That's just, the long-term plan's not working right now. We still have to find that magic solution. And that plan also has to continue, besides roads, it has to do parks and equipment. So we've been talking again with elders consistently. We actually had a conference today to talk that further, and they will also be here on the October workshop to give you a proposal and to go through a few things. And one of those things is the current approach that we're thinking and have mentioned at a few meetings here, or at least the last one. That's just for street repair, a $10 million bond over 5 years. We believe if we do that, it might stabilize that first 5 years and then be able for us to slot in the following years in the financial plan. We're still testing that model and seeing how that works, but that's the theory. What that'll do is allow for, efficient construction planning and bidding. Identifying that kind of funding, we can seek matching grants. We can better partner with the state and county improvements. However, this only addresses some of the maintenance roads. It doesn't face those roads that are called major reconstructions. So to explain that a little bit, which I know you have been explained to, maintenance is a mill and overlay. You scrape off the top basically, and stop me if I'm going way off of my, but you scrape off the top, and you've all seen the machines on the highways and stuff, and you put a new road of asphalt. You fix the soft spots in the road, but a major change or major reconstruction, that means you dig up the whole road, you go down, you dig up the base, you replace water and sewer lines as necessary, put a new base down, put a new first course and a wear course down. So it's a total dig up of that. So what the 10 million 5-year plan does not anticipate and address is those roads that we have to have major construction on. That's why the council and the staff have to address the assessment policy that we have. Currently, our road policy is to special assess on all major reconstructions. And we have to decide if that's still something we want to do. So for example, if we have to do North Shore Trail, which is probably a total reconstruction, are we ready to assess those people on North Shore Trail, whatever the cost is going to be for that major reconstruction? Or should we consider changing that policy and using bonding for some of that major reconstruction? And some of that will be determined by the cost of those. So for example, let's say it costs $2.5 million to do North Shore Trail. Do we want to then, if we're bonding 10 million, do we want to do another $2.5 million, or do we want to hold off on that for 5 years until we get past the first 5? So we've got a lot of play there to figure out what we do. We have to identify that. But right now, we strongly recommend the 10 million 5 years approach for maintenance construction. And talking to Ellers today, just to get you an idea of what rates are, I believe that they just sold a $7 million bond for, I forget the name, I have it in my notes, but the interest rate was 1.46% for a 20-year bond. Again, that's pretty low rate. We can't make that always on our investments, or you can't make that on your savings account, really. So we, again, should take a look at that and see if we should take advantage of those rates. I thought at one time that we would go into not bond until 2022. We may accelerate that to 2021, but have no impact on the levy for 2022. There's ways to do that, to delay, again, not to get too far to capitalize interest or to interest-only payments, or just not pay until 2022, 23, I guess it would be now. So Ellers is working on some of that and when we should do that. Part of that discussion is also, as we have mentioned before, the capital equipment certificates, which basically is a leasing of equipment, and we're identifying the largest pieces of equipment that are most expensive, the fire trucks, the plow trucks, which, fire trucks, we're talking 700,000, plows, we're talking in the $250,000 to $300,000 range. Those are long-lasting pieces of equipment. Leasing seems to make some sense there because we put a 10-year lease. We'll still have 10 more years out of them. We'll just stretch those payments out. We'll use some of that savings possibly to redeploy into the parks that we need to start to look at. So it is a moving kind of thing right now. Hopefully in the next few weeks, we will get that all straightened out and be able to provide you with some of that. We're hoping some of that may give us some levy relief in this year's budget. I can't promise you that at this point, but that's part of the goal that we're seeing. Okay, if we can provide some levy relief by doing this, we'll look at it. Again, no promises, but we'll look there. So And just as you all know, when we have new development, that pays the cost of full infrastructure. They pay for water, sewer, and streets. It's a policy we should not change. We should make sure that we continue to make that policy. And I've talked a little bit about funding sources. We need to continue our increase tax levy every year for roads so that we get to a good place. Have been trying to do that on an annual basis for our levy. We need to continue that. Obviously, we can issue debt for those roads. We do have franchise fees that we use for roads that we should see when that renews and if we need to look at raising those rates. And there is some talk about the past federal legislation regarding infrastructure and how that may affect roads. We don't know that yet. We have no idea that guidance or any of those programs haven't come down from the Fed yet. Knowing the amount of what they're doing or the new legislation they're considering, we'll wait and see. I'm sure we won't have an answer for quite a while if that's going to be something that'll benefit us. That may go through the state, and the state may then put it to the locals, or it may go through the county and so forth. So we just don't know. We're waiting and seeing on that. And that's all I have. Questions?
That was a lot of detail. Thank you.
Could you repeat that?
Even better than repeating it, can you email this to all of us?
I'll absolutely do that, yes.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, that was a very thorough analysis, and I really, really appreciate that. I know we've talked a lot about balancing growth with spending, and this really, I think, kind of paints that picture for us that's, genuinely what we are trying to do, not just raise taxes for the sake of raising taxes. But we have need, we're experiencing growth, and along with that growth comes, that need for additional service. The other thing that I like about this is that it really does focus on our core functions, which are infrastructure and public safety. And that's our job. And, but it also is in direct alignment with our strategic plan. And that's the opportunity we gave our community to speak about where they wanted to see us directing resources. And, that just kind of sums it up for me as I take a look at what's being proposed here, kind of that cost-benefit analysis from a council member's perspective.
Yeah, and we also hope to turn some of this information into some kind of a pamphlet or citizen budget book. I remember last time we bonded, we did something like that. We'll look at doing that again so people better understand what we're trying to do, and that we're not just trying to raise taxes or levies because that's what we want to do and we want to pad our wallets or anything. There really is a need here. There has been, again, the kick the can syndrome. It's been long past. These roads are not good. They need to be addressed. And we just have to figure out a way to do it.
There's never enough money for roads. I'm sorry. The point is, thing about roads too, you fix them, there's a little bit of a payback there too, because there's less maintenance. So there's some things to consider there too. But yeah, I wish there's never enough money for roads, and I don't know how else to do it,
Mayor Bain, just a couple comments. Patrick, I appreciate this PowerPoint. I think you've kind of put a spotlight on why we're in the predicament that we're in, and it tells a story. And I hope for the public and the citizens, they realize we don't take this lightly. We're doing our research, something that we said we do, and there is a need. And honestly, the opportunity, we have an opportunity to fix this. We have a real opportunity. We can't keep avoiding it and kicking it down the road. I mean, we can't. It's not going to be the city that everyone actually really wants, if that's the case. So just some comments.
Would just add, kind of echo comments that were previously made, or won't say the comments that were previously made. I agree with them. As I kind of look at what you've laid out and where we've focused this year and where we haven't yet focused, and we might see some answers in the 10-year plan, is we still aren't making the progress we need on parks. We haven't done anything in 10 years, and we have, some identified need on parks, and we have a proposed, some discussion of change in policy and how we're using park dedication fees and land versus fees. But I feel like if you look at where we are from level of new investment and where we are from what the public says they want, it was the public's top need, but the public's also coming into that, I believe, with a foundation that we've already taken care of roads and public safety. And so I'm not arguing we do anything different. I just want to continue to highlight that we've met a lot of needs with this proposal, even with this large number that's before us for 2022. We're kicking fewer cans down the road, but we still haven't solved that full park picture. And I don't think we've quite developed the vision that the community expects us to when they gave us that feedback. And again, I think we get there, and I support the steps we're taking, but I just want to continue to highlight we're still not getting to some of those important items that the community has said is important. I do think, I'll make a connection here, I do think we have an opportunity to bridge some of those gaps with the downtown redevelopment plan. Some of that's going to be focused on recreation, and Lakeside Memorial is a big part of that. But the comprehensive city park plan, we still have a number of holes to still tackle. So, but I again, fully support making these steps and these incremental improvements to kick fewer cans down the road.
Yeah, I think, I think what I see here when I take a look at this, it's, we don't want to be spending indiscriminately, right? I mean, it's not our money, it's our taxpayers' money, and we have to be careful. But a lot of what's in this proposal are investments that are going to provide us some return, right? Whether it's the community development position, bringing more commercial industrial, property tax into our community payers, housing development, whatever it might be. A lot of these investments are going to provide us a return, and I don't think we can lose sight of that either.
Agree. So Patrick, you've teed up a number of topics to be covered in this October, is it
Yes.
October 19th? I don't have.
I think it's
the
correct.
calendar right in front of me, our workshop in October. Certainly an opportunity to come back with a broader 10-year perspective at that time. Sounds like there might be some updated tweaks around the levy, suggestions possibly between now and December. But it sounds like the recommendation for the levy at the previously discussed amount stands.
Yeah, I would fully recommend the stated levy, proposed levy. As always, or at least the last few years, we have worked between the adoption of a proposed levy and the final levy to try to find ways to reduce that or reevaluate revenues or expenditures to see if there's anything there. And we've been pretty successful at finding a little bit. I mean, we haven't dramatically dropped any levies, obviously. It's usually been a half a point or something. But that's what you pay us for doing. That's what we should be doing. That's our responsibility to do that. So we'll go forward. The only thing that out of this presentation is I'll either ask you tonight or in October to accelerate the hiring of the community development director, possibly to begin the advertisement right away so that the beginning of 2022 we can hit the ground to go. I think we'll have savings from 2 vacant positions now to cover that. So if the council would like to consider that either this meeting or at the workshop in October, I believe that would be a good step.
I'm also really anxious to kind of better understand the impact of leasing. I know when I was a school board member, we did that with our school bus fleet. And it was a really wise move for us organizationally. So I'm really anxious to learn more about.
Yeah,
how
it
that
makes a
might
lot
help
of
us out.
sense with the current rates and with the age, the lifespan of that equipment and the cost of that equipment to lease. It's everybody likes to pay cash, right? I mean, everybody says I'm going to pay cash, but with the rates that we're showing, and again, I don't know if the rates are still what Ellers told me on leasing at 0.8%. If that's still the case, it may be 1.1 or something. But with that, and that'll take some of the pressure off of the levy as well, because if we are to fully fund the equipment fund. I mean, we need $1.5 million probably every year to go forward. And right now, we've got that, but the levels that we're going to spend in the next couple of years on fires and plow truck, we're going to have a negative fund balance, and we don't want to do that. So leasing is smart, and it makes a lot of sense at this point.
Regarding your question around timing of advertising the community development director position, our next meeting is October 11th. I believe that's Columbus Day. Did we move to Tuesday on Columbus Day?
I don't think Columbus Day is off. I
It's
don't
not
think that's a
not
holiday
federal
for us.
holiday.
Yeah.
Okay, so next meeting is October 11th. Is there anything, are you looking for permission to start advertising that now?
Yes.
And if we were to wait until approving that position until the 11th, where we could see a formal job description, do you see?
I don't see that as an issue. I just think, a couple of weeks aren't going to make the difference. We need to write up the job description anyways, because it's not only a community development, but it's an EDA, so it's going to be a hybrid job description. We already obviously have the community development job description from the last time. We'll add EDA to that, so I don't think waiting till the 11th is an issue for us.
Are you anticipating that that's an exempt position or part of a negotiated position?
Unknown at this time.
Okay. My personal preference, I'm open to feedback from council. My preference would be, let's bundle those things up, at least an outline of job description, whether it's an exempt position or expected to be part of one of the bargaining units, and then a high-level budget summary. I recognize there are some budget dollars available yet this year, just to
Yep.
hear what that, I would benefit from that, but if you think that there's something time-sensitive,
No, I don't. I think that the 11th is fine.
council, are you okay with that timeline?
Oh, sure.
Any
just-
other budget discussion
Yeah,
questions?
just
before
one
we
more
con-
comment
Yeah,
about roads. They don't get cheaper to do. They
that's-
get more and more expensive every single year.
Absolutely.
And if you sit on it, it just gets worse.
I
And-
would agree.
And so we gotta look at it that way too, so, thank you.
And I appreciate the exercise of the, pieces need to fit of this 10-year plan and trying to get these projects sequenced in a way that the budget fits, but even something north of what we have today, which is not a 10-year plan, I think is good progress. So if there's some uncertainty in future years, I'm open to seeing a plan that even has some uncertainty in future years, because again, I think there's some immediate items that we need to consider.
Yeah, I think if we can stabilize the next 5 years and have at least the short-term look at that, if we know that that's the road maintenance issue, and we maybe address parks a bit, I think
Right.
that's a longer-term funding issue that we need to, but with roads, if 5 years is good, and then we can add on, like you say, what's the next 5, 10, or 15 years, and how uncertain, try to figure that out. But we need to make some kind of decision here, and again, it's been chasing our tails with what's the right scenario, and I think this might be the one. We're not sure yet, though.
Understood. And also, just every time we say 10-year plan, we might actually be meaning 20-year plan by the time everything's baked in,
I
right?
think that's going to be absolutely the case.
And I think it's important for the community to understand, I mean, if we're proposing a $10 million bond, it's important, or whatever it is we ultimately end up proposing, what's wrapped into that?
Yep.
What specifically is wrapped into that?
Yep.
Because we get, I do complaints every week about our roads, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So North Shore, Eureka, Forest Road, North
Yeah.
Shore, Eureka, First Road.
And again, we're talking major reconstructions on those streets you
Right.
just mentioned. You're going to talk about Eureka tonight. It's on the discussion about what we should be doing with that. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But again, it's more complicated with these major reconstruction roads, and we have to really identify what that's going to do. And then if we're going to bond this fall, and maybe then again sometime next year, we should have made those decisions on the assessment policy, and if we want to continue with that method or do something different.
Agree. So council, we have one more item on the action for this evening, and that is consideration of resolution for the preliminary tax levy. Any other questions we have of staff before we consider that resolution? Or is anybody ready to make a motion?
Mayor Bain, I'd like to make a motion, which I do not make lightly, But I'd like to move to adopt resolution number 09-27-21-04, a resolution approving the 2022 preliminary property tax levy and preliminary 2022 budget and setting the public hearing date for the 2022 budget and property tax levy.
I'll second it.
We have a motion from Councilmember Munson and a second from Councilmember Byström. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all of those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? And motion carries. That concludes our action items this evening. We are going to move into a discussion portion of the agenda. This is a workshop session only. Anything that's discussed tonight that would require official action will come forward at a future council meeting for official action. So we're going to move into a more informal, unstructured portion of our meeting, and we're going to start with a discussion on Eureka Avenue. And who is starting discussion on Eureka?
Well, I think that, I'll tee it up at least. Eureka Avenue, as you know, we had Clear Lake, I guess it was, association come in and express their concern about Eureka Avenue and the erosion and people parking along the side of Eureka Avenue. On the recommendation of Ryan, I drove Eureka Avenue, and it needs attention. It's probably the worst road in the city right now. The difficulty with Eureka Avenue is the width of the road, and it can't get much bigger. You're surrounded by wetlands on one side and the lake on the other. So the question is, how do we address repaving that road? Internally, we have staff discussions, and we believe the best recommendation would be to close Eureka and cul-de-sac it on both sides, put a trail between the two cul-de-sacs and a fishing pier and make it a recreational area. And Ryan can jump in here anytime. We believe that a reconstruction or repaving of that road will cost 1.5, 1.6 million. If we cul-de-sac it, put some parking in on each side and put just a trail and a fishing pier or whatever to make it more of a recreational area, we believe it only costs us half of that, 500 some odd thousand. It makes some sense. It's not a great road. It's a dangerous road, particularly in the wintertime right now when it's plowed because it's so uneven, it just ices up. It's narrow. Again, we have people fishing there. We have trucks parked on the side. It's a cut through. Recently, we were having semi-trucks cut through there. It's a road we don't need to service. I mean, we probably should have some discussions with Columbus because I know their residents use that a little bit, but it's our recommendation that we consider closing that road and plan for cul-de-sacing that road and making it a recreational area.
Just question, do we have an idea of number of what the vehicle count is per day on that?
I can look that up quick.
That would be
I'll have to
helpful.
get in the MnDOT site.
Yeah, understood.
So it is considered, well, it is a designated state aid route right now. So every 4 years, we are required to do traffic counts on our state aid roads. So we're coming up to that point again. We would be due for the stuff to be submitted in 2022.
So can you explain in greater detail cul-de-sac it? What do you, where, because, I mean, the intersection with 97 was improved with the idea that there was going to be some probably commercial development in that area.
I'll leave that to Ryan to comment on where that's going to happen.
Okay.
Mayor, City
Give a map
Council,
that we could pull up.
the concept that we've just developed internally for discussion points and then put a cost estimate together to see kind of where we land at. I mean, we're looking at cost savings of $1 million, but moving forward, you're not having to deal with this type of road in the conditions and environment that it exists today. I mean, you're not going to dramatically improve the condition out there where kids and families are trying to use this area as recreation and fish right off the side of the road, and cars are driving at the speeds that they're driving. I mean, just go out there any morning during morning commute time. Sit in your car on the side of the road and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And they don't drive through there slowly. They'll tailgate you. The road conditions are deteriorating to a point that it's our recommendation to close this shortly prior to our first snowfall, because Public Works is not gonna get on this road and snowplow it like you would a normal road, because there's rutting, severe rutting out there, and their blade can't get down to that. When the road does this through the wheel ruts, the blade's gonna touch the highest point of the pavement.
And then does it turn to ice?
So that area in between is always gonna be snow and ice, right? Or they're gonna salt the blank out of the road, and that's gonna go right into the lake too. And so then there's another environmental thing there. So that's the issues and concerns we're at, the narrowness of the road, the speed of the road, but the condition of the road, and then what goes along, happens on a daily basis on the side of the road. And basically, it comes down to dollars again. I mean, we're talking $1 million in savings with the initial project. And if, you come with the reconstruct, you're gonna have to deal with it again and again and again in the future. At what point then do you decide, after a fatality happens along that road, that it wasn't worth it? I mean, why would we put ourselves in that situation when overall in our transportation network, this doesn't serve as a great need for the city of Forest Lake based on traffic routes, business access, and public safety? We've had this discussion with fire and public works. There's no businesses, no residents around it, so this would be 100% cost of the city too, on that. And I think there's a lot of other roads and investments within the community that would have a much greater impact if we were to improve those. And whether it's recreational, pedestrian, safety, all that other stuff that goes along with those other roads we're talking about that has commercial or industrial or residential property adjacent to it. Here, I think you got a great opportunity where we're talking about the cul-de-sacs, on the south end, maybe it's in the city limits, maybe we work with Columbus to pull it back farther. But there is a kind of already a hammerhead area out there that we could, build the cul-de-sac and some parking stalls out the side of that, you could park on the south side, then use that trail to access yourself in. On the north side, if you're coming south, you got that first access point into the DNR launch, and then that driveway or that parking lot goes pretty far south. We would work with the DNR to try to have another access as a turnaround on the south end of the parking lot, so there'd be a looping through there. But then you would have the road wide enough still in that area to allow on-street parking right there of that looping area, and then maybe some hammerhead parking at that area too, to allow the vehicle traffic to park there to access the trail down to go fish, or a fishing pier, or just, recreational purposes, you're biking through there. And you'd still maintain the boat launch parking that exists today. So that's kind of what we've talked about internally and reviewed, sat out there, watched what happens, the behavior, the situations, how close they're skimming my mirrors, and I have my flashers on, and, if they're not flinching. So, and with the road conditions coming up and the condition of the road, it's just not worth the chance moving into winter, and that's gonna be a slippery ice skating rink with vehicle traffic trying to do 40, 50 miles an hour down there.
So Ryan, you put that first cul-de-sac on the north near the landing there then? Is that the idea? Or would you go a little bit further?
Well, what we do is,
You got the
you
boat.
got that north driveway already. You see where the pinch point almost touches the road?
Mhm.
We'd build another access in there, which would allow the turnaround.
Right.
We could keep Eureka full width road from there to the north driveway access. That way you could have some on-street parking for vehicles to access the lake for fishing and stuff. So you'd park there and you'd walk down. Depending on how much space we could get in that area, you could do a portion of a hammerhead or called a mini cul-de-sac too, to get some more spaces in that area.
Well, the reason I brought it up is a cul-de-sac to me implies that you have an area that you can make a turn in there,
Yeah, but with the driveway, we would try to utilize the pavement that's already there for that turnaround. We've worked with Public Works on how the geometry would work for snow plowing too, so they'd still be responsible for all that stuff.
And then on the south side, where would you end there?
Just some-
Yeah. Right in that corner there.
Where do you want me to go?
Oh, so you see the road.
Right there, zoom in. I'll go northwest.
Road onto the screen.
See that little hammerhead already?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
We would build a traditional cul-de-sac, but skewed to one side.
Public Works uses the turnaround right now. It's the end of the city limits there.
Have we had any resident feedback yet?
Oh, we're
Suspect the answer, yeah.
initiating our engagement with you guys first.
Perfect. So question, I know there's always times where there's a squad car that's in an odd spot and is responding to another part of the city. But generally, is that section of Eureka that is on the west side of Clear Lake, is that ever used as a squad response route for anything other than someone happens to be already there and going somewhere else in the city?
Once in a while, depending on where we're actually at when we get that call, we have utilized that, but not that often because of the road, because it is in such bad condition, and with the roads or with your passing other cars, you definitely do not want to be going too much faster than the speed limit on that road. So if we have an opportunity, we would usually jump on 35 and utilize that going either north or south.
So you don't have, if we were to close this, you don't have a concern with us upping a response time in another part of the city, or is that?
I do not know.
Okay.
With the way they've restructured and remodeled 97 over 35, it's much easier for us to just take 35 and from south and get to the any of the houses on 97, and then same with going north if we were down on 97, going back up on the north end of Clear Lake there.
So 2014, this road had an annual daily traffic of 2,200 vehicles per day. Counts weren't able to be obtained in 2018 because remember the road was closed. This is our only state aid segment that wasn't able to be counted.
Can you say that again, Ryan?
2,200 vehicles per day was the annual average daily traffic.
Do you have any indication of how much of that is residential local use versus through traffic?
I think it's
Either-
through traffic, yeah.
Either
I
real
think-
data, it's anecdotal data.
I think it's coming from Columbus, a lot of your traffic. Or it's your early commuters, but a lot of them were, you follow the cars that are driving in the morning too. A lot of them, if they're going northbound, they'll go up to the county road, take a left over the bridge, past County Road, County State Aid Highway 33 or Everton, and go west up into that neighborhood there in Columbus. But then there's some that, that development right there in Forest Lake too. But they're easy access in connection to Broadway, now that Broadway's been improved too.
Right. There was a time when this route was kind of well-known for the Lino and Blaine Leela commuters. It was kind of like the minibus or the minivan superhighway of like the shortcut to get to Leela. But now that I think 97's been improved, I think that's been, I hope that that's no longer the case, but morning and afternoon was quite busy. When you're doing a buzzer beater.
I have a quick question, or actually maybe it's not quick, but I know you said you're just bringing this here tonight to discuss, but what is the process to close a road to get feedback? I've never done this before.
Closely work with your neighboring people you might affect, the city of Columbus, public safety, public works. Might want to reach out to the residents on the north side of Clear Lake that live along the private road of 217th. In whatever area you feel is appropriate to extend out of that limits. Some communities will do a traffic count of turning movements at particular intersections to know where traffic might be coming from. Those are just kind of the steps that they go into it. Might be just a thing we do during the winter to see what reaction you guys get going into next year and through the budgeting cycle. the road was closed for, we were told it was gonna be closed for a year, but it ended up being closed for 2 years, when Columbus and MinDOT were doing their projects. So it was relatively quiet and not used for 18 and 19.
I appreciate the immediacy of needing to make this decision, but I hesitate to say that it's just a winter decision, because actually my perception is that it's more of a safety hazard in the summer when you've got fishing, you've got the pedestrian traffic and the recreational traffic along with the cars. And so, yes, there's an obvious maintenance plow challenge of the winter, but I think there's a ongoing safety
Well,
concern.
the roads
year-round.
deteriorated a lot through just this summer. So we're coming here, prior to winter is because we're not gonna be able to snowplow this adequately like we are able to other roads. This road also is very skinny, no shoulders, and there's no traffic barriers, no guardrail, none of that. So where are people gonna go? Obviously, in spots that are proposed life situations, so it's another reason we're here tonight to see what direction you might want to take this. Do you want us to pursue those conversations with the people I just outlined? Or do we just let it go status quo?
Seems to be a logical next step.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a
And I think-
problem. It's a problem we need to solve.
Safety
We
issue.
just need to figure out how to solve it. And I think the first step is getting that feedback.
And I think it makes some sense to close it for the winter, just because of that safety issue, but knowing that that's not the permanent way that's going to stay closed. And that obviously will give us the winter and some better ideas where we're going with the dollars and paving. We can always reopen it, but I think that what we're being told here is that the winter months are going to be dangerous. It's going to be icy, it's going to be dangerous, and that a December to whatever closure does make some sense this year with the analysis going forward on whether that's going to be a long-term closure or not.
Yeah, also, if we have this perspective of a long-term closure, and if you're able to present, yes, you're losing this access point, but what you're gaining is this great recreational amenity, and we can articulate what that will be. It's, I think,
Well, and I think
better
some of the Clear
presentation of-
Lake Association will, when they came and talked about the erosion and the environmental impact of the road and saw that, I think they'd be very happy to hear that we're considering a long-term or permanent closure of that, so that the erosion, because of the parking and because of the cars, probably be in favor of that as well.
A trail connectivity opportunity there?
So if we can get down to work with the city of Columbus through their boundary area, they obviously built trail along Hornsby there.
Right.
And then MinDOT's talking about trail with the 97 project.
Right.
So should we schedule a community meeting with those Clear Lake residents and just kind of walk them through the same type of presentation and hear feedback? I'd welcome the opportunity to get them together and hear that. I know they're an active group and would probably be good. I think we'd get fairly good engagement if we were to plan something like that.
Work a little more broadly with other residents around the lake.
Yeah, we'll come up with an approach and what we need to do to discuss the permanent closure of Eureka Avenue.
I think Clear Lake folks would really like it. I'm not so sure the Columbus folks will though. So they gotta be part of that conversation for sure.
Also, yes, Columbus folks might have some feedback, but I think as 97, 97 has improvements coming up and planned improvements. I think that whole stretch becomes, if that's your route to, for example, get to the retail district off of 12th Avenue, you have some other far more safe alternatives that are getting some pretty significant improvements in the near term. So any disadvantage is pretty short term. And ultimately, it's a safety issue, so it's got to weigh heavily on us. Any other questions or feedback items you'd like staff to consider, council?
I would like to better understand, and it doesn't have to happen tonight, but just kind of what is the vision then for that stretch of road? Is there going to be some sort of improvement there? You've talked a little bit about a fishing dock. you know, so as you're fleshing that out a little bit more, I'd just be curious to know what the vision is.
Yeah, and I think that's important for the overall discussion with the
Right.
closure or non-closure, that if we close it, what are we gonna do with it?
Right.
Also great opportunity just to get feedback from the Clear Lake residents on what they'd like to see there.
Can add to our parkland.
Staff, anything else, Ryan, Dave, Patrick, you need from us? All right. Great discussion, thank you. Patrick, I'm assuming we went through everything related to budget, or?
Absolutely.
Okay. That closes the discussion portion of our agenda. Let's go through staff updates, and let's just start here at the beginning of the dais and wrap our way around. Karen, do you want to start?
I have no comments, Mayor Bain.
Anything for Karen tonight? All right, thank you. Dan?
Mayor, members of council, I just want everybody to know that all of the communications for the watering ban are now live on the website. And I did also tie those back into the education on the odd even as well. And we'll work with Dave on some subsequent communications later on, because we do have an irrigation water sense rebate program right now. So since this is kind of a hot topic, we'll try to tie some future communications in. But website's updated, Nextdoor's updated, Facebook's updated, and I pulled it off the sign. So
Perfect.
full court press.
Thank you. Well done. Any questions for Dan? All right, Pete?
Your Honor, I have no update.
All right. Patrick?
No
we'll
update. I've gone
move
through
right around.
everything I've had to say today.
All right, Dave?
Just in light of the open forum, I'll bring that to the October 11th meeting, just to do a presentation on that street lighting denial. So you guys can discuss and see. I think so. I'll bring that back
That's coming
up.
before council?
I'll just bring it back on the 11th
Perfect.
for you guys to take a look at.
Perfect, thank you. Brian?
Mayor, City Council, next Monday, up in the community room, 5:30 PM to 7 PM, we'll be holding the public open house for North Shore Circle street utility improvements. October 18th, City Council workshop. Washington County will be here to present on Everton Avenue or County State Aid Highway 33 project. Looking then come into the following City Council meeting to obtain a resolution of support of the project. That's procedure required when there's municipal funds involved in projects, that they're required to obtain municipal consents. States had to do that on projects too, so. But they'll be here at the October 18th City Council workshop.
Very good. Thank you, Ryan. Anyone have anything for Ryan? All right, Chief Peterson?
No updates for you tonight.
All right, anything for Chief? Chief Newman?
I only have one update tonight. This Thursday at 7 PM at Station 1, we have our joint fire board meeting. Only one item on the agenda, so it should be a pretty quick meeting. That's all I have for updates.
Al, tell me the date again. What was that date?
It is 9:30,
At 7 PM, you said?
7 PM, yep, Station 1.
Excellent, thank you. Anyone have anything for Chief Newman? All right, and Sandy?
Nothing to add tonight unless there's any questions for me.
Anything for Sandy? All right. Let's go right along council. Councilmember Munson.
Just one comment. I attended the downtown workshop last week and really enjoyed it. Dan, you did a great job of setting that up and doing it the hybrid. It was really fun, actually. So thank you.
Good, excellent.
And
Councilmember Brystrom.
I would just echo Councilmember Munson's comments. I was in the virtual session and we were having some pretty robust discussion there too. So very well done, very well done.
If I may, just like on the virtual session, because Bruce had asked me for just any specific feedback on the virtual session, like, so after, if you have any ways to improve that, let me know, I'll pass it along to Bruce, but he was looking for virtual session feedback.
I will do that.
Yes, very good. Councilman Presnick.
I also attended the workshop that evening, and then this evening, I also attended a meeting, of the Economic Development Authority in the Downtown Committee Workshop as a follow-up to that meeting that we had last Monday. So lots of work to do yet, but I think there was a lot of progress done here tonight too. So other than that, that's all I have. So thank you.
Good. Councilmember Valento.
I attended the workshop as well. It was super fun and productive. And last week we met, the Cable Commission met for a workshop to go over the bylaws and it went super well. So that should be coming up on the next Cable Commission regular meeting to be voted on.
Is there still a thought that Scandia might be rejoining Cable Commission?
It's up in the air. I feel like Dan might know more. I know last I heard Scandia wanted to join.
Scandia rejoining Cable Commission, is that still consideration?
They keep wanting to come back in, and where it sits right now with Paul is a capacity issue to see if the staff there have enough capacity to take on the extra workload. I believe the last conversation I had with Paul regarding it was the administrator from Scandia wanted to get a presentation together to kind of do the roadshow to say what they're gonna, offer to come back into the commission. So I haven't seen anything formal come back beyond what Paul has told me.
Oh, I did hear that that reminded me. I did hear that that Scandia approved a resolution to get back into the joint powers agreement. But my only concern with the joint powers agreement is that if you actually read that agreement, there's literally no way for a city to come in.
The whole joint powers agreement have to be like rewritten, I think.
I would assume so. So
a redo, so.
Yeah.
Very good. Just a quick update from me. I also attended the same workshop on the community workshop for downtown, the downtown plan. And then we did, as Councilmember Hustic mentioned, we did circle back with the downtown committee today in our EDA meeting. We had kind of a follow-up discussion. The proposed vision statement that we had drafted in our workshop came back as kind of, here was the consensus. The only real topic was we were pretty deep into wordsmithing, which is always a nice place to be at this point in the project, but then also some consideration on whether or not we specifically needed to call out housing. Housing, when you look at the top 5 on everyone's list, there wasn't anything that made housing be specifically called out. And there was just kind of a question of, well, even though it wasn't on the top 5, does it still need to be in the vision statement? There's a number of versions that are going to be sent back out to the downtown committee members for some email feedback back to staff. And then all of that is expected to come back to council along with those recommendations at our next council meeting. So Bruce will be here to present that. He is looking for, sounds like, adoption of that vision statement sooner rather than later, as it does help to guide future activities, because then we start moving into more of the logistics of the project. And so the more precise we can be, the more specified they can be in those efforts. And so just be thinking about that, of how important is housing to be a stated objective, or is it kind of a secondary objective that goes with everything else in the list? This will all make a lot more sense when you see it at our next council meeting. That's all I have, and nothing else before council on our agenda. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? We're adjourned.